Wagwan. We're back at
All
it. We're
right
back
then.
at it. Yeah.
Yeah, that we are
So
back at it again. Another crazy week.
another crazy week. Gets crazier by the day.
Yeah,
And what you need to do is just follow X.
yeah, yeah.
That's
That
that's
much is true, man.
I don't think X has been so busier than it is today. It almost seems planned, actually. What do you think? Hmm?
Well, I haven't been following. I haven't been following actually what's been happening on X, but
Hmm.
what I will say that what I will say that I've seen is that funnily enough, thinking about the how many thousands of year old, the 7,000-year-old civilization of the Iranians being able to fight a 21st century war actually better than the inventors of the arms to fight that war, by dominating in the X arena with those
Mm.
crazy ass AIs. Have you seen those AIs? I
Um,
watched one
they
earlier
make
of
they make
they're
it like
making
that.
sense.
Yeah, and the thing is, they actually have many different variations.
Mm,
Because for there's like different channels. So there's the Lego one. There's a new Toy
yeah,
Story one
I love
that came out.
the Lego
Lego
one.
ones are like, and there's different Lego ones because there's one that's a rap, and it's like the
Yeah, yeah,
guy's
yeah,
always coming up with a new rap, like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and then there's another
yeah.
Lego one, and then there's now a Toy Story one, and then the funniest ones actually are the embassy ones. Have you seen those?
I haven't
So
seen
they're
the
like,
NBC ones, but I saw synth Trump. Trump is busy playing the synth. They were I don't know what he's
yeah,
singing about. They've got him. He's got this bombastic, phantasmical hair, and he's wearing like a pink leopard skin like jacket or something. It's so crazy, and
yeah.
I'm like, oh wow, the Iranian underground, like the IRGC, like hats off to these guys. I wouldn't have thought that comedy would be like a weapon of political warfare and
Yeah.
psychological warfare, but it
No, it
seems to
is
be working.
because the adversaries are like the good guys. Actually,
Like
we sympathize more with
to
the
be
adversary.
honest,
Yeah, and it's never happened
to be
before
quite honest,
in the history of the world.
they are literally taking over the airwaves and turning people to like, maybe you should be listening to these guys. People
On
are
the very
basically
platform that's not meant for them, to be honest with you.
exactly
As dark as
exactly.
it is in Iran somewhere, I mean, they obviously find ways to actually make it onto these platforms. But if you look at there's this one here. So as I was saying, with these embassies, so they've got all these X accounts. The one here says Iran in Ghana. So there's Iran in Vietnam, Iran in South Africa, Iran everywhere. Basically, wherever Iran has embassies. So the
Mhm.
one is 12 hours ago. Let me read it. It says, "Dear Italy." Now you know what happened with the Italian Prime Minister not too long ago. That she got her
Yes, that
fair
refused.
share of criticism.
Yeah.
It says, "Dear
Hmm.
Italy." Your prime minister, now this is addressed to Italy as a country. Your prime minister just defended Pope and lost an ally in Washington, the commander in grief. Yet the most powerful FOOL man on
Yeah.
earth. We would like to apply for the vacancy. Our qualifications: 7,000 years of civilization, a shared love,
For ice cream.
7,000 years of civilization, a shared love of poetry, architecture, and food,
And of course, ice cream.
longer to prepare than Trump's attention span. The only
Mm.
thing Iran and Italy have ever fought over is who invented ice cream. Falude came first. Gelato came louder. We've been in a cold war over this for 2,000 years. I mean, this is just incredible.
Uh,
11,000 liters, 1,100, what do you call these things? Likes, and
mhm.
59,000 loves, and 1.3 million impressions. That's in 12 hours. How's that?
I think I think that, like I said, man, who would have thought that a country that was 2 or 3 weeks ago supposed to be blown back into the third century is now waging this incredible, like dogged what's the word that I'm looking for? PR war that they are winning decisively.
Yeah.
And genuinely things like that actually make them kind of likable. You kind of almost
Mm,
want to forget that they're a fundamentalist state. But
mm,
nonetheless, I think they having been sort of randomly attacked really in the context of this situation just kind of
mm,
lends credence to us actually sympathizing with them to some extent, not to mention the fact that the atrocities that have happened, the thousands of people who have died since the campaign
mm,
began. And they're also response in kind. I mean, there are no heroes in this story, but nonetheless there
mm,
is at the very least a very poignant example of what information warfare and also propaganda warfare looks like, in the
mm.
context of the 21st century. And for once, actually, all things not considered, all things
What
considered,
exactly?
it's actually quite
Yeah.
amazing that AI actually
Mm.
proves a use case
Yep.
as a tool,
That's
actually
exactly it.
proves a use case as
Against
entertainment.
against the owners of AI, the creators. It's almost like
And this
backfiring.
was and this was exactly my point here, is that
Yeah.
the way that they've been able to basically define a new frontier of war, or should I say, a new theater of war, uh,
Mm,
in this really, really quirky and funny way, is amazing to me. Human beings, you give us AI, and we wind up
mm.
making Lego videos, but that have a message.
It's
But
almost like
nonetheless,
they owned it. They own the narrative, actually. They own the
they've
narrative.
taken over the narrative.
Fox can say all they want, but they own the narrative. In the
They've taken
funniest
the
of ways.
initiative in the
Let's come
funniest of
back to
ways.
Iran a little bit later. I
Mm,
wanna actually bring it home. So as you
mm,
saw, the DA had their federal election a few days ago. I think it was over the
mm.
weekend, and
Yeah.
it was some. I want to say interesting. The reason I use interesting is that it's sort of neither here nor there. A lot of the results were actually expected, to be honest. But
Mm.
what's your take on what happened over the weekend overall?
Um, you know, I think the most surprising thing for me about what happened in terms of that conference is that it happened, and there
Yeah,
was, like you say, very little fanfare from
yeah,
the perspective of their usual. Like, I mean, this is the DA, man. I usually have to change my phone number around the time that it's going to be any kind of a DA event. Do you know how these oaks? You know how
they
these oaks
find
get on the phone? I
no, they
I
find you.
shudder to think what they're going to do with AI when it comes closer to elections. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah,
like like there's always been a kind of a fanfare around their upcoming conferences and all of that. And I think,
mm,
Coco herself has always kind of pushed those things with a verve and an energy, but it seemed very subdued this time. It just kind of felt very, like you say, kind of non-consequential. And
mm,
when I
mm,
look at for me personally, coming out of it and reading some of the coverage around it and all of that, my personal sense was that, the DA, for better or for worse, has kind of painted themselves into a corner where
mm,
they've kind of decided that they're going to harden their soft ceiling, so to speak.
mhm, mm,
The DA reached a watermark in the elections prior to this of almost like 27%, if I'm not mistaken. But they
mhm,
came down precipitously in the previous election, which obviously led to, the stepping aside of the previous federal leader, and then we all know the story around that. But
mm,
ultimately, when it comes to this, when it comes to my scorecard, if I could put it that way, of
mm,
this election, it's kind of very, very. I would say it's a monumental moment. I mean, this is the first, not the first millennial leader, but really the first millennial leader of a major political party in the country. So that's something to actually like take into consideration about, like, maybe where they're going in terms of the direction,
mm,
strategically and otherwise, of where the party is going. Because obviously, Jordan Hill-Lewis is a guy that we probably would have encountered at school at some point, probably played against him cricket or rugby or whatever the case is, because he's a DHS boy. You know that, eh?
Oh, really? Okay. In
So
fact, I think it was
yeah,
out, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, he was. He was. He's
He
literally
was.
our age. He was in our year, so we would
Oh,
have
yeah.
probably encountered this
You
guy.
know,
So now imagine that sort of a dude in the context
yeah.
of now leading a major political party in the
He's like,
country. You know,
he's like a mate. You'd consider him
yeah,
a mate. Yeah.
he could have been a mate if I'd gone to
Yeah.
DHS. I went to Northwood
Yeah.
though. Go
Yeah.
Knights. So
You just had to put it in
so
there.
you know, I had to put it in there as well because
Yeah.
Steenhuisen himself is a Northwood boy. So it's like
Oh, really?
two guys
Okay.
from Durban handing
Interesting,
over
yeah.
the reins to this party. Anyway,
Okay. Yeah.
nonetheless, where was I? I was thinking this is emblematic of how the DA is. You know, they're
Yeah.
pandering a little bit to their general mommy market, their suburban lady market, and their donors, who are really the engine of the party. And I think that it kind of it inhibits them in terms of growth because there's always that ceiling. There's now that they've wrested the party back from all that experimental stuff with you know, melanin rich leadership, they've gone in a completely opposite direction, but brought in younger players, which is somewhat exciting. But at the same time, it's kind of serving us more or less the same fare as before, you know. And I don't know if you kind of share that sentiment because, like I say, this was could have been a watershed moment. Feels very much an insignificant moment. But I will say this: their strategy is quite clear, and I love the communication of the DA because they're capable of communicating their message, and their strategy from the outset, even looking into it, is quite clear. They're going to sacrifice the national project for a more regional based, brick by brick kind of. They've reorientated it to be a brick by brick region based kind of a conference, right? Their whole idea is that they have Cape Town as a metro, and given the weakness of the ANC and the chaos of the council within the Joburg region, they've got a chance of taking possibly the mayoral chain in Joburg. If they can do that and build a solid a grassroots kind of base, then they'll be able to take Joburg. And Joburg's a very populous city; it's massive. So if they can do that, then that will, I think, give them confidence going into the later coming general elections. But who then becomes their president is the question, because we are not going to have a president Geordin Hill-Lewis. That's like beyond the realms. So to me, it's like the DA has decided, look, what we're going to do is we're going to push hard to get local power, and then and then parlay that into a campaign for national power. But what we truly want to do is be a vociferous voice within a broader coalition. We want to be the second in a coalition. We're not actually thirsty for actual general national power, which for me is like, why are you in politics? Politicians are supposed to be greedy for power, go for the jugular all the time. Why not play this kind of a safe thing that could very well backfire later on? Because what happens if Opa doesn't win the city? Then you wasted an entire cycle of elections chasing something that maybe you should have focused energy somewhere else. And why I say that is because look at what the federal leadership looks like. I mean, have you seen this thing?
I actually I have it in front of me because everyone keeps raving on about youth and about color, but where are the females in this?
women?
Because that is the one thing that stands out the most. Exactly, where the women. I mean, I've never seen
women
on a page.
I
goes
have to be honest with you.
No, it's shocking, actually.
Where's the women? And also, where is Papas? Where's Papas? The mayor of Ngeni.
Yeah.
Come on.
Big surprise.
Come on.
But there must have been a reason behind that.
I think that they have a kind of a set sort of succession plan, and platforming papas could just absolutely derail that. Also, I think
Mm,
that there are very socially conservative elements, obviously, within the DA. There's some
mm,
socially conservative elements who don't want to see a young man who speaks in multiple languages and lives an alternative lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? I don't know
yeah.
if they're too happy about that.
But hold
And
on,
his
wasn't
eggs need more bacon. But like I was gonna say,
didn't
his eggs need more bacon. But there's a guy called Popham who's
yeah?
28. There's a guy called Popham who's literally a literally a deputy Fed chair for the finance council. No, deputy Fed chair. There's three of them. One is Smith, JP Smith, old guy, Walters, and then Popham, a guy who's
Yeah.
28. He's basically a pup, and he's already a Fed chair, council
Mm.
chair, deputy chair. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what that means, actually, if I'm honest with you, because the DA's the DA's ranking
Sounds quite
system
familiar.
and all of that. I was like,
When you say
where's the
something like
treasurer general?
exactly.
Where's the chief whip? Like, what are we doing here?
Uh, no, it's interesting. And in fact, wasn't Papas in some sort of scandal? I stand to be corrected, but he flew his partner somewhere. But
Look
I'm
it up. I haven't really heard anything. The only scandals I know about is the Uber Eats scandal, which, gee, that is embarrassing,
yeah.
super embarrassing. Um, old old Steenhuisen had a freaking super. He was charging Uber Eats on his federal credit card, and
Hmm.
they you know how they get about impropriety when it comes to um, using money. So it was a big thing. That's part of the reason why Steenhuisen hasn't returned his chair. He literally he had a torrid time, and following the previous Fed chair, Musi. I mean, it should have been pretty much plain sailing to go. To be quite honest, but I don't know. I don't know if yeah, they played it safe there, and you know, all things considered, I mean, they got a lot out of Steenhuisen in terms of his negotiations with the president, in terms of being able to get into the GNU, and him selling it to both sides. They got as much as they could have hoped for from Steenhuisen, and Steenhuisen's proud of himself, I think, for his at least parts of his performance. The way in which he got scandalized though over Uber Eats money, that
Mm.
yeah, that sucks, but you know, c'est la vie. That's the party you chose.
So what do you
Yeah.
make? Um, and I actually found it quite hilarious. What do you make of the other guy that that ran for presidency or DA leader, who it kind of felt like, wow, we needed a black, just for the hot,
I
because he was like running some area of KZN or something, and the way I felt it made it look worse was when
hmm,
Gordon Hill called him out of nowhere to say, "Oh, see ya bonga," or something like that. It's like, come
hmm.
here, here at the DA, we proud to be a party of camaraderie, and we don't fight against each other. And I just thought, man, this is so staged. It didn't feel, it
It's
didn't.
just cringe. But that's the thing, is that we're gonna have to get used to this guy for now, because he's dripping of cringe. I mean,
Mm,
that much I can tell you. Like I
mm,
say, it's I don't know if Hill-Lewis is quite ready for this. I feel like he kind of benefits a lot from a lot of political capital from his patron, Madam Zilla. She's still hanging about, and probably is going to be, and probably the reason why he's there is that basically she's going to be his puppet master. But I'm more worried about, like, what does this say about their aspirations? Like I said, glass ceiling, they just hardened it. We
mm,
haven't even spoken about Sarupen, the Fed Council chair, and yeah, he's a deputy minister. There's other deputy ministers. There's other ministers. Yeah, Malatsi is a minister who, I don't understand. If these guys really had an aspiration, it's quite obvious that Kharube, for instance, should have been maybe somebody who could have been looked at as a possible contender. But how do you do that? Because let's face it, DA is the most complicated party in the country. They
mm,
are trying to win over a majority black audience while still serving the interests of a minority base, which also is financially so potent that they can't afford to make even the slightest deviation from their message, which is a
mm,
message that hinges on neoliberalism, classical neoliberalism, deregulate the economy, get rid of BEE. They sell the idea that when the tide comes in, all boats will float, and that we should just kind of dissociate ourselves from what happened in the past and just completely, it happened, let's cut it, let's not even talk about it, let's just focus on the future, which I agree on, but like that's kind of callous when you're speaking to people of my hue who kind of suffered through those things. So, but again, it's just the difficulty of navigating those sorts of dynamics. I don't know. If you right now were to be running for president of the DA, like how would you go about trying to grow your base, trying to attract people coming in from the outside, whilst at the same time walking this tightrope of representing a kind of an adherence to the status quo that cannot be changed under any
mm,
circumstances?
mm.
What would you do?
You can't ignore the color element. I mean, it is what it is, right? And it's not
Mm,
like that color has too many alternatives. So you
mm,
do have to constantly walk a tightrope when it comes to, and it's deep rooted. So you need to consider number one, who calls the shots in the background, number two, how it's
mm,
funded, and number three, just basically that there's constantly a resistance on the leadership side. They don't want to let it go too much, and it does seem like the previous leaders were deliberately of color, but they don't quite survive because they don't want to let it go. It's quite clear who pulls the strings in the background. So it's a difficult party, as you've said. It's very, very complicated.
It's the most complicated. It's the most complicated out there because, like I say, their intentions are good. Their heart's sometimes in the right place.
Mm,
They govern. I don't know. I won't say well necessarily because it's kind of myopic in the way that they run things in certain places. But nonetheless, they have. They're the one party I feel like that has got aspirations that are in alignment with where, as a country, we should be seeking to go, which
mm,
is to say they want to cut the BS, cut the corruption, and get things moving. However, they are misguided if they think that neoliberal, like, cut out all regulation, cut out government, and cut taxes, and then we'll see these miraculous effects of the open economy just flow, and everybody gets rich, and that just, it doesn't work. It
mm.
has never worked. It
Not
will
in a
never
country
work anyway. Not in a country that already
Not in
is
a
built
country like
on a foundation of inequality.
it's
You just
structural.
you just want to exacerbate what is a structural
It's
inequality problem
exactly
that we already
we have
have.
structural inequality,
Yeah.
which actually requires a little bit of autocracy, but that is very focused on the fundamentals that ensures that people are educated, people are healthy, and people are safe as like number one priority. So if that would be the state structures that everyone buys into and everyone is almost lifted to be at that same level. But right now, it's just getting worse and worse, actually, in this normal
it's
democracy. It's getting worse and worse, and the numbers speak for themselves.
it's getting far, far, far worse, and I feel like it would be even more further exacerbated.
Mm,
But here's the thing. Actually, I don't even feel like it would be further exacerbated. Even if you were to put the DA in charge, they couldn't do any worse than what we're seeing now. That's for damn sure.
mm,
But that's
mm,
all just due to, corruption and tomfoolery on the side of our current ruling government, which, myopically rules basically for the purposes of self-enrichment.
mm,
Unfortunately, we're living in those times, but I suppose, let's not let them let's not put them into this conversation, because we're just going to end up being completely derailed. Like, in terms of the scorecard that I give them about a 7. Their conference brought through, like you said, it was very telegraphed, so we knew it was coming. That augurs well for stability.
mm,
um they've put in a whole lot of technocrats and people who are strong of personality, like the Khwarubes, the Msimangas, and I don't know anything about Sarupan, I'll be honest, but I suppose he's there too.
mm,
And that's it's a fairly good and youthful slate, and I wish them all the best. But again, I'm disappointed on the lack of representation of women, females, anyone.
mm,
Also, I've got a wait and see kind of attitude towards how Jordan Hill-Lewis graduates onto the national scene. We'll wait.
mm.
I can't wait to see the campaign photos for the national election with him running for president. That will be like gold. It will be like JD Vance before JD Vance actually runs for president. You know what I'm saying? Like,
He could
it'll
get if there's another GNU, he could get deputy presidency. Who knows? He may get if he chooses to be in cabinet, he may get something a lot more senior than we think, or a
Yeah,
lot more.
well, you would need really for the ANC to properly like go down to like 33% maybe. They did get 39 in the last election, so they would have to get like a
And it's not
technical
going
third.
back to the 40s. Let's just call it for what it
Hmm.
is, right? They're at
That's never
39.
happening.
It
They're
can
gonna
only.
bleed slowly.
Mm,
They're gonna bleed slowly, but then their entire whatever it is that they give up would have to be completely and entirely taken by the DA, which does
mm,
not to me sound like it sounds like too steep a swing. But if they can get a foothold into Joburg Metro, who knows? There are alliances and pockets of like they say, they micro target their audience now. So there are
mm,
alliances that are to be made there across various stakeholders and groups that they can maybe take advantage of. So let's see how they do. If they perform, that'll all go. If she wins the mayoral chains, they perform. It'll all go well for that election. They won't exceed any further than being the second biggest party in the country. But that suits them well, because they still get power. They still have cabinet positions. They can still influence things in the background. So they don't necessarily. I don't think that. I think that the safe slate just tells me one thing: they have no aspirations of actually becoming the lead party in the country. They are instead trying to be a active second chair in terms of leading the country.
They're also being
That's that.
realistic. They also need to be realistic and focus. They want to get Joburg back. They had a chance.
Mm.
They had Joburg. They had Pretoria. They need to get it back, and it's almost like it's the perfect time to get it now because it's so bad at the moment. You and I live in Joburg. We both know
Yeah, yeah.
like how
I
horrible it is.
on that, I can't wait to see him and or Hermanus and his former lady boss taking each other on. That's yo.
Already
That is
starting to see
like a
couples being
WWE
on X.
inspired smackdown of a political battle. It's
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
I
No,
mean,
it's gonna be it's
it's going
gonna
to
be
be grueling. It's going to be grueling. I mean, can you imagine he's going up against his former boss, She
Yeah.
jettisoned him into the land, into the wilderness. He came storming back on his own, and and now he's like, revenge. We meet in the ring again. This is like a, it's like those kung fu movies. You know, your father stole my mother's bubble gum. Now I'm here for revenge. Like, uh,
Listen,
oh man,
let's switch over to the Strait, which
yeah.
has been a fascinating blockade that has happened. A blockade and a blockade. I don't even know what you call that. But
Mm.
what's your take? In fact, is it still open or closed? You never know. It kind of depends on who you speak to, right?
Kind
That's
of depends
open
who
or
you speak to and time of the day. If you speak to Iran, yeah, there are boats transiting through the strait, but the strait is
closed.
still closed, unless you pay a
Yeah,
bounty, of course.
bounty.
Now,
Uh,
a toll, a toll. Uh, like, I don't know. I don't know what more to say about what's happening over there. Last
mm,
week, there was a ceasefire. We were celebrating it. That ceasefire didn't even hold 12 hours. It just goes to show that we're living now in a kind of an alternate facts reality.
mm,
The White House is so full of beans that at this point in time, you actually have to rely on Iran state TV to give you a more accurate read of what's actually happening. Have you noticed that? Have you
all
seen
the X
this?
handles.
Or the X
Yeah.
handles? Like it's crazy. But
Mm,
yeah, the like I said last week, if this, first and foremost, let's go back to who's winning.
mm,
Again, Israel is just running roughshod. They are now completely out of control. Trump is so deep in here that he has no lever to pull to try and bring Netanyahu to heel.
mm,
He's got to continue. He's got to continue bombing and so on and so forth to try and rescue some American assets and keep things and keep his allies that and his alliances that he's built over the years within the Middle East. He's got to keep them placated, and they are playing this really tightrope between him, the Saudis, and trying to sort of sacrifice Lebanon over to Israel so that so that they can take down Hezbollah and basically eliminate what they view as being an existential threat for them. But again, that's always what Israel says. It's just an
that's just an
exaggeration.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just an
No, but that's
exaggeration and just more
yeah, yeah,
propaganda.
yeah. No, those are
In
just
terms
subtle
of
justify it, but
yeah,
I mean, it's never going to be the case. In fact, there's almost no such thing. Okay, maybe I'm being a little bit extreme, but
mm,
in the immediacy, that doesn't exist. I'm sorry to say.
yeah,
It's just always exaggerated.
it's
And
always super exaggerated and
yeah,
just blown so far out of proportion. You guys are so far ahead of
mm,
any kind of threat that is not credible, really, that
no one
anything is
else
going to
is
happen.
anywhere close, actually. No
No
one
one, no
else.
one
If
is.
anything, if anything, it's the other way around. All the countries in the Middle East are essential threats by Israel.
Or existentially threatened by Israel
Yeah, yeah.
and its
It's an
belligerent
existential
actions.
threat. No, seriously. Okay, I mean,
Yeah,
you're not going to
but
blow away Iran into the Stone Ages. No, that's not going to happen. But from a perspective of military power, from the perspective of influence, certainly the economy, no one else.
alliances,
Alliances, no one comes close. No one comes close. So it's
practically
just
speaking, yeah, they are
it's
the
just
superpower of the Middle East, and now the thing is, they are
but they're
so
getting stronger and
so
stronger.
belligerent. They're so
Yeah.
belligerent that they are even not taking orders from, or rather, not even acquiescing to the request of the White House. Because I want to believe that JD Vance didn't go to Islamabad and go and negotiate with Pakistan and China and everybody to try and bring about somewhat of a halt to the hostilities, only to have it blown up immediately just straight afterwards. I think that there was an earnest attempt there, but obviously Israel just completely scuppered the thing. In terms of the reaction to the resumption of hostilities, Trump's,
Mm.
I don't know who's advising this guy, who's in this guy's ear, but if your aspiration is to try and liberate the strait, putting a blockade putting a blockade on the straits is kind of like making Iran's case. You know what I'm
It's
saying?
counterintuitive for so many
It's
reasons, right?
counterintuitive.
Just for so many reasons. One, just it's actually blocking the world from functioning. You know, Iran is already dissipated militarily, economically, but you are
Obliterated. The word is
it's
obliterated.
obliterated. Sorry, obliterated. You know, not quite to the Stone Ages, but maybe 20 years. You know, the time period changes. I think the last I heard was 20 years. But in any
Mm.
case, you are actually stopping goods leaving and coming into the Middle East. So it's already on reserves in terms of those.
Strategically,
But then everyone else as well. So the whole world right now is actually at a standstill, to be honest. So people are deeping into their reserves. And then the other thing, sorry,
hmm,
if I may come in, is I mean you would know the geography part. So
hmm.
the Straits is technically controlled by Iran and Oman, but Iran for lack of a better word. And there's traditionally
The majority of that coast entering in is Iranian controlled.
it's Iranian, but so the strait traditionally actually used to cross more or less in the middle,
Hmm.
but now it's Iran has so-called put the mines on the Oman side at the bottom,
Yeah, of course.
so that the ships going forward for that bounty money, that $2 million, the ships actually have to go by Iran. And so the geography just doesn't work. No matter how many blockades you put, the geography does not work. You'd have to invade it, literally, and put the whole of the US Navy and
But
station it with every
that's
water
partially the idea. I don't think that they've thought it through as I can guarantee that the Pentagon has
yeah.
looked at all of the scenarios you're talking about, but I can guarantee that the guys they're talking to, trying to get to understand this, just don't have the sheer capacity to be able to reason at the
Yeah.
level of which you have just reasoned now. I think for him, what he's trying to do is that by blockading the Oman side and basically keeping out any trade with or closing down any trade with Iran, he figures that's going to be a and also obviously interdicting the ships that have gone through the strait and paid the toll and all that sort of stuff, keeping them. He figures that that's going to sort of suffocate them long enough to be able to get them to back to the drawing board to negotiate according to his very onerous terms. Because again, like what was wrong with Obama's Iran nuclear deal?
Oh,
If you are
let's not.
not going to actually be able to
Let us
substantially
not.
alter the terms of that deal. Anyway,
Yeah.
moving on from that, the point here is that they want to try and starve them out, but you don't. The thing is, Iran, like you just said, Iran controls such a long proportion of the strait that they actually downstream or other countries that are going to suffer as a result of your insistence on blockading the blockade that Iran is already running. So it's
The
a
geography
nightmare.
doesn't.
It's giving me a headache just
Mm,
thinking about what is the off ramp then from there, because
mm,
after you've tried to put naval pressure on them and they don't
mm,
buckle, but your own allies within the region end up getting injured,
mm,
then what's the next? How are you going to expedite the process of getting these guys to negotiate? And also your terms. The terms
mm,
are complete nuclear disarmament. They're not even allowed to have a civilian nuclear industry. I mean, how do you expect them to just hand over all of their enriched uranium, all that fuel, all that fissionable material,
Mm.
which has taken decades for them to amass. How do you expect them to now just hand all of that stuff over with without anything to show for, really, except for reverting back to a status quo you yourself decided to destroy?
So I think the off ramp is going to be, we've destroyed Iran's navy, we've destroyed Iran's missile capability. They
Mm,
now have, and they'll make up some fictitious number. They now have 10% of ballistic missiles. We've destroyed the intercontinental ballistic missiles. We've sent them back to the Stone Ages. Okay, maybe 20 years. And now we're fine. We're okay. And Iran is promising, just hear me out, they're promising to not build a nuclear weapon, or rather to not enrich for however many years. Because in the JCPOA, I think the enrichment was 3.67%, and there
mm.
was a promise of 5 years to not do any further enrichment. The Americans in the latest deal want 20 years. So now that's going to be a bit of a tug of war. But whatever the outcome, whatever the off ramp, Israel is not going to be happy. That much you can guarantee.
Obviously not. Obviously not.
It
They're not going
doesn't
to
matter.
be happy.
Like, it's almost like Trump right now is in quicksand, and it's reaching his chin very quickly, a lot quicker
You
than
know,
he thought.
I would say he's in quicksand whilst also being like strangled by a boa constrictor. Like he is sinking and being suffocated on top of being suffocated.
It's
Like
a blockade. It's a
honestly,
blockade. Yeah,
yes, bro.
yeah.
Honestly, he's hey. But yeah, I mean, what more can we say about that? Unfortunately, though, we are going to suffer the effects, and we are still just seeing the beginnings of it. Um, I mean, you don't have to be like the head of the petroleum society in South Africa to be able to tell that people are really, really, really feeling the strain. I mean, I was hearing from a friend of mine who was commuting today, just discussing how within the past couple of weeks, there's been like a very, very steep increase in taxi fares. And these things aren't being obviously matched
That's
by
true.
increases in wages. You're looking at now a trip that was 65 rand going in like
Mm,
maybe 70, 75. That
mm.
and that's one way, and that's on a daily expense. That's a daily expense. I mean, where
Adds up.
when do we get the breathing space to be able to adjust budgets in the context of a situation that's moving so fast? And this
Yeah.
is, like it or not, I mean, this is sure to bring about instability throughout the entire world in the next few coming years, and it's also going to exacerbate
Mm,
inequality because really all all this bluster about going into these oil-rich countries is
mm,
really a lobby around the current occupant of the White House, DJT,
mm,
by a bunch of tanker billionaires, oil billionaires, and people who are said to benefit. I mean, the Qataris themselves who offered them a jet. I mean, is to some extent, yes, this is an inconvenience to them, but a structural increase in the oil price is something they're going to benefit from eventually anyway. You know what I
mm,
mean? But also, more importantly, let's talk about the bear in the east. He's loving this situation because
mm,
he's replenishing his coffers,
mm,
and all this talk has gone completely taken eyes off of what has been a rolling 5 year now, fifth year going into expedition into his neighboring country of Ukraine.
mm, mm.
So, who wins in all of this? Putin, for one, the Israelis, obviously. Yeah, I don't know. China is also somewhere in the midst of that. Is just
It's a
how
bit
China
mixed.
is, bro.
Yeah.
They're mixed,
China
but
wins in the
they
long run, but right now in the immediacy, it's a little bit mixed. But long run, they definitely win. I think
I know.
The
In the
reliance
long run, they do.
on Iran is real, 20% of their oil, but in the long run, they're still okay. What China's been doing, and yeah, alternative energy is not sustainable per se, but the
Mm,
way that they've been building up their solar energy is absolutely insane. I think they're building more solar than the rest of the world combined.
mm.
Secretly.
Uh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And obviously, they can afford to scale up on those things. I mean, solar is very, very intensive in terms of
Yeah.
just producing it from a rare earths and all that sort of thing. But they can afford to scale those things up because they have a vision that says we got to come and be number one and take whatever opportunity we can for that. Because
Mm,
like
mm,
ultimately, right now, if you look at what has been happening over the past 5 years in terms of
mm,
all of these conflicts that are happening throughout the world, they are bleeding the two major powers,
mm,
and basically bringing China much, much. Other parts of the world are doing the job for them in terms of bringing them to near peer status in
mm,
terms of their with the other two competing superpowers. I think they've already overtaken. They've long since militarily overtaken. Well, they haven't demonstrated it, but in terms of just sheer raw numbers of material, they've obviously
mm.
overtaken Russia
Like for
in
like.
terms of as the second biggest power in the world, and their military industrial complex has grown so rapidly, and
Mm,
America's is so sticky because of it being essentially a duopoly between well, and not a duopoly but a kind of an oligopoly of sorts between
roughly.
a very,
Yeah.
very, very small core of defense contractors, because as much as America spends, most of it gets just circulated around companies like Lockheed
Yeah.
Martin and the rest of
GE,
those guys, those major.
General Electric.
So
Mm,
General Electric, all of those companies essentially can participate as a cartel to ensure that they can extract as much value as they can from
mm,
all the Pentagon dollars. Because where
mm,
else are you going to get it?
yeah.
You want to have rifles, you're going to buy them from us, and we're going to just keep
Mm-hmm,
on raising the price because, well, we can. You
mm-hmm,
have no real powers to stop us because you've put us in this position of having total control
mm,
over the Pentagon and over your budget.
mm.
Anyway, nonetheless, sorry, that was a very depressing segue. Nah, Ted, I think all things considered, it was an interesting week. I thought that those were the two probably most interesting facets of what we've seen in the past week.
Mm,
Um, in coming into the future, I think it would be interesting to further track what's happening with the DA and the things that they are trying to do, and try and interpret their message and what they're trying to achieve. Because, like I said, and their ambition, but their ambitions are great, but they follow through. I'm not so sure, but we'll see what happens. And
mm.
yeah, on
I
we
think
go.
the next big DA talking point is going to be the elections coming up, and let's see how many more potholes Helen can canoe over,
Point out and fix.
point out, and fix.
I don't
And
know
if
about
that,
fixing, but probably point out. Yeah.
yeah, and if that's going to win people over, let's see. I think it's going to be a very interesting. Every election is super interesting.
Mm.
It comes with its own backstory, but this one is going to be the most interesting yet. So let's see how
This
things
local
go.
election, this local
Because it
election,
gets
particularly.
closer and closer, right?
Yeah.
Every year or
It
every
has to be
couple of
held between the 7th of November and February next year. So from the 7th of November, they need to start preparing for that election. I wonder when the declaration is going to go out, though. But
years.
nonetheless, I mean, we still need to deep dive on all the chaos that's happening actually within the council and the ANC with two centers of power. Because now the mayor is being pressured to leave his position as a mayor deployee from the ANC to allow for the chair, who was recently elected, Loiso Masugu, to come
Mm-hmm.
into that position so that she can herself get the opportunity to try and build her brand and build her reputation, make it a whole misfit Tontun situation. So
She
that
doesn't have
hasn't
a.
really resolved itself. She doesn't
She
have
doesn't.
much time.
She's got no
She does
time.
not have much time.
What can she do in?
So you know what? Who
Mm,
knows? But that's the point. There is that they're in an interesting position, and in terms of their fighting over
mm,
fighting over those budgets, and then of course there's the matter I was actually discussing with another mate of mine earlier of what's his name? Of what's been happening now at a provincial level, because there was the appointment of a new MEC from the EFF, and that's also a matter for discussion because that guy, ironically enough, was the MEC here in the city of Ekurhuleni, and
mm,
he basically was um, taken out under a cloud, and now he's come back as the MEC for finance for the province after he
mm.
was doing finance for the city, and that didn't go well. But now he's controlling the province. It's interesting. It's interesting how you can fail upwards in South African politics.
That's normal though, right? That's totally normal.
Yeah, is the well, if we're
Have you
speaking
ever
about
heard
that
of like
in the corporate
performance
world.
scorecard in South African politics? Because I've never heard. Yeah.
Jeez.
So the newspapers do
Jeez.
it, but I don't think that it's actually done internally. No.
It's actually, like I say, it's fascinating. I mean, all the failures of these people, and they still keep on going upwards. It's really quite amazing to behold. But nonetheless,
Yeah.
yeah, that's South Africa
Well,
for you,
until next
baby.
time. Until
Adios,
next time,
Chief.
I was chatting to you, and then yeah,
We'll have
let's
another chat on
let's
another
see
wacky
what
Wednesday.
let's
Like
see what next week
what
brings.
the next week has to entail and what the next week brings.
Has in store for us. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
All right, man.
Cheers, homie.
Oh, cheers.
Sure. Like